Oh, definitely it brings me joy, and I love interacting with readers, and I do panels a lot and everything. And I even when my students tell me they read my books and like them, it's good. And I remember one student told me that she recommended my books to her brother and who didn't read much, and then he told her, "Wow, it's really great. I want the next one." And that's really nice, and yeah. And of course, then as writers, we spend 3 to 6 or more months writing it and then preparing it, and then someone reads it in 2 days and asks you, when is the next one coming? So.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's an author podcast, and we have global guests on the show, which makes me so happy because I'm here in Canada. And my guest, when you finally meet him and hear him talk and hear where he's from, you're like, wow, this internet thing is great. It's just amazing that we can connect and do this podcast stuff, and you get to hear great voices on the show. And we got a great author for you to fall in love with as well. And he's a big, fancy, big-time teacher, professor. So we're going to get a lesson as well. So we're going to pack it all into one episode. And Jan's here with us. Jan, welcome to the show. Nice to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Greetings from Prague, where it's currently 10 p.m. in the evening. And thank you for your beautiful introduction, Dave. I'm glad to be here. I'm not sure if I'm a big fancy teacher, but I do teach, and I will be here something. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be
Good
here.
stuff.
And I wonder how many miles are between us, or kilometers, since I'm in Europe in kilometers. But
wow, Prague. That's I pulled up the map before we jumped on. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And you're in the future for me too, which is great.
yeah, and I sometimes when there's a New Year's Eve and we pass the midnight, I write to my American and Canadian friends and say, like, hi from the future, from the year, whatever the next year happens to be. So
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you here. We talked a little bit about your teaching background in the intro there. Can you tell people where you're teaching and what is the subject you're teaching currently?
okay, I'm teaching at a university called, well, in English I think it's called Literary Academy, and I will get like more detailed name later. But yeah, it's Literary Academy is the program we do, and it's basically the only university in the Czech Republic, I believe, that has like creative writing as a program. And of course, if you go study there, you can study all kinds of other fields like journalism and marketing and all these types of things. But yeah, we have creative writing program, and my boss is really dedicated into that. And we have lots of talented Czech writers teaching workshops there. So
Good.
what I do is in the first year, I teach creative workshop for 1 semester, where it's like intro to writing, and the students are from different backgrounds and different fields, and quite honest, the different level of interest as with anything, so some are already writing, they are pretty good at it, some just want 3 credits and be done with it at any university. And so in the first year I teach them, and my colleague and my supervisor teaches them as well, Dan. And then in the second year, they have several other very good writers in various genres teaching workshops.
When you look at your students, Jan, like, are you excited for the future of writing and authors and what's coming down the road? Or are you excited looking at your students going, what's a good future ahead of us?
Yeah, well, I am excited for all of them. But of course, there are people, that they are not really interested and they just take it because they have to. And that's absolutely okay. And there are students that I just know I'm going to be hearing more about them in the future. And,
Nice.
and apart from creative writing, I'm teaching also like science fiction, fantasy literature, like some theory class, like seminar. But and one student in that just recently published a new fantasy novel. And I haven't taught that one workshops, so I cannot take credit for that. But I had students in previous semesters being published in magazines and elsewhere. And one of my students is currently writing a short story for my anthology. And so, yeah, I think there are
Nice.
people that we are going to be hearing about in the future.
How long have you been teaching for?
Well, it depends. At this university since 22, I think.
Okay.
But before that, I taught a little bit of writing and also science fiction fantasy literature at my alma mater, which was UNIP, University of New York, Prague. And that was from 2016 to 2019, I believe. It's a different university. It's more focused on economy and marketing and also psychology. And it's American University in Prague. But so it's the program there is in English. So it was slightly different. And the degree is then accredited by American universities. I think one of them was LaSalle in Pennsylvania. Another was Empire State College in New York.
Okay.
So it's basically like you study in Prague, but your teachers and your program comes from the States. So like it's the same thing, just different place where you've studied it, probably. Yeah.
Okay. So if we're a new group of students coming in your class and we're meeting you as our teacher for the first time, what do you kind of do with your students to kind of get into a creative space to help them unlock their ability to write? What are some of the practical exercises or prompts? What do you do with your group to get them writing?
That's a great question. And as I'm constantly learning myself, and there is one bit of advice that I remember since high school, and it was like how much you learn by various tasks. So, like, for example, studying from a textbook, you don't learn that much. Doing practical exercise, you learn more. And you learn most by teaching others. And so I'm constantly learning. So I'm learning from my students as much as they are learning from me, hopefully. But usually at the first lesson at a university, I introduce myself, I give them my background a little bit, and then I ask them to do the same. Like, what's your name? What have you published before? If you have published something, what are you writing? What are your aspirations? And we talk a little bit about that. And then I give them some theory, as in what are we going to be doing in this class and how we are going to approach writing. Because there are various techniques you can approach writing, and they are not, I'm not going to say there are no wrong answers, because some answers definitely are wrong, but just the way we approach it. So I tell them, we approach it from craft perspective, because I don't like the artificial division like craft versus art. I believe they are interconnected, but craft is something we can hone and we can learn. Like, okay, try to do this. Do you really need to use this adverb? Do you really need to? This character doesn't work. We should think about how to make the character work. And usually I tell them, don't push the art bit, not because art is wrong or artistic is wrong. I think everything we create is art, but it's been my experience that when someone sits down and says, oh, now I'm going to be this huge artist and they will quote me and I will be really super famous, how I was doing whatever, it doesn't work. You just write what you want to write, and all the art and everything will take care of itself. Don't push it. That's one of the advice I'm giving them in my first lesson.
I like that.
And
are your students writing in English?
No,
for the most part?
No, they were writing in Czech, because Czech University, or of course, well, Czech and Slovak, because you may have known, and I'm sure your readers know, that we used to be Czechoslovakia, and now it's Czech Republic and Slovakian Republic, and our languages are very similar and we understand each other, and lots of the students come from Slovakia, so it's okay to read Slovakian for me. But a few, I think last year I had one experimental seminar which was like creative writing, but we were writing in English. And so students who were sure of themselves in English, they volunteered for that class, and we had lots of fun, and we had some very interesting stories there as well in English.
Is it a different writing process to write in English compared to writing in Czech for your students?
I don't know if it's for my students. I think it depends on their English level. Some, they have like, I don't know, since childhood, if they have American or British friends and they've been playing video games with them online all the time, it's if they are not that much versed in English, it's harder for them to write it. It depends. As for me, you may have noticed that my English is rather good, and I also have a piece of paper that I can teach English, and I'm doing a little bit of teaching English in corporations, like English as a second language.
Good.
But when I am writing directly in English, and I've done that several times, I don't think it's all that different for me, but I think everyone is individual in that. I think for me, it's important to know idioms in both languages. You need to know idioms in language that you are writing in. And I've been discussing that with my translator, because some of my books are translated from Czech to English by someone else. And my wonderful translator, Isabel, and who I'm sure we are going to come back to translation question as well. But sometimes questions of idioms, and should specific phrases be translated, or do we use equivalent phrase? Yeah, another language, that's an ongoing issue. So that's I think that's it.
Are your students influenced by Western writers? English-speaking writers? That's one of their influences?
Definitely. Yeah. I think Czech Republic is fortunate that we have lots of translated literature compared to other countries in Central Europe. For example, Czech is really good. We have many, I think most of the mainstream science fiction, fantasy, and other authors are being translated into Czech, and we have very good the tradition of translators. So, and they keep getting better and better. So
good.
I think that's good. And of course, the students also read Czech authors, and Czech and Slovak authors, of course. So I think they're well versed in both.
I would think there's a cultural influence as well when you're reading like a Western writer, where maybe some of the story would need further explanation. It's a cultural thing. It's maybe an unknown for some people when they're reading, going, I don't understand the context of what the author's writing, and I need to investigate maybe a little bit.
It's a good question. I've never thought of that much, but I think when I read translated literature, sometimes if there is some cultural connotation, or the characters are mentioning something that would be very obvious to American readers, for example, or Canadian readers, what the characters are talking about, and it may not be clear in the Czech language, usually the translator goes with a footnote and explains that in a footnote.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but
that makes sense.
It's right similar when you are reading historical literature, for example. I am a big fan of Aubrey Maturin series by Patrick O'Brien, and they're constantly at footnotes, because, at least in the Czech version, because they are talking about something that was very common in the early 19th century, and we don't know what would that mean.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Another thing I noticed when I talk to instructors and professors, especially who are teaching writing, just the influence of AI in the world today. How are you seeing that impacting you and your students, your classroom, on a good way, a challenging way? What are you seeing in the world of AI and writing?
Yeah, as for my students, I don't think they're using AI to write the story for them because they don't want to. They are not doing that, and sometimes they use AI as a tool, as something to help them. And I think in a similar way that, I don't know, when you are using MS Word or equivalent, you can click and say, find me a synonym. Yeah, and you have
Yeah.
to same words in a row, so you want to find a synonym or something like that. I remember one example. I gave students homework to. We were talking about inspiration, and inspiration is a wonderful topic. And one of the most annoying questions to ask an author is where you get your inspiration. And usually,
I was going to be my next question.
okay, so I'm getting hurt. Okay,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
usually,
Yeah.
the truth is they don't know, right? The honest answer usually is we don't know where we get our inspiration. But what I would like to talk with students about, I say, you won't influence where and how you will get your inspiration, but you can go like towards it. And you can do that by being interested in everything a little bit. And I'm one of the people who go to Wikipedia and I click at random hyperlinks. And so I'm there. I don't know. I wanted to look up the birthday of Napoleon, and suddenly I'm reading about oil rigs, and I don't know how I got them there. So I really love that, and so I tell students, try to get inspired. And one of the first homeworks I assign students is write a short story based on some random bit of information you found online. It can be from a news, it can be from Wikipedia, whatever, something you haven't known before. And as to go back to AI, one student asked AI to give her 10 random things, like tell her 10 random pieces of trivia. And the AI obliged, and she wrote a really good story about something called the Battle of Karanshebesh, which was the historical battle from the late 18th century, and technically between the Austrian army and the Ottoman Empire, but the Ottoman Empire never showed up, and the Austrian army managed to destroy itself. And it's the biggest friendly fire incident in history, and roughly up to 10,000 soldiers perished because the Austrian army at the time was speaking 10 languages, and so they were shouting at each other in the dark. They didn't know they were friendlies. So, I never heard about that battle, and I'm like super excited and interested about that because I've also like Bernard Cornwell Sharp novels, and I think this is like in that vein. And I'm now writing alternative history novel from the 19th century. So yeah, I'm still thinking about this battle that the student asked AI to find her, and of course the AI didn't made it up. They really happened. Of course she checked, and that's important. You can ask AI something and then check it, please.
Yeah, please check. Yeah, there was one author I heard of, Jan, and he was writing a book about marketing for business, and basically he just went to ChatGPT or whatever, and he just said, write me a book about this in this tone, and he pushed the button. And it came back with a complete book. He published it on Amazon, and he's making money from it, but not a very small portion of the book is his words. But basically it's copied and pasted right from this AI tool. And he puts a disclaimer in the book that this was written by AI. But it's selling, and he didn't write it at all. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. Because I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, my thoughts are, why should I bother reading something that no one bothered to write?
Good point.
Yeah, but I do believe that in time, as AI gets better, it will be possible to. I'm talking about fiction now, and non-fiction is a different kind of forms, and maybe non-fiction will be easier and faster. But as for like creative things like fiction, I think it would be possible to, if you feed it enough prompts, it will create something that's readable, and there will be enough prompts from you that it would be like something from your like author side, but just feeding it the prompts would take me like 10 times longer than it would take me to just write it myself.
Yeah.
So
Right.
and and there are like two things I see in AI, and I'm not like religiously against AI, because I think the gin is never going back into the bottle, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I understand the dangers, and I understand that lots of the, especially tech companies, are like getting crazy about it, and there is a bubble happening. And I have friends who lost jobs because the companies tried to do more AI and less people, and that's crazy. And but as usual, I think in time these things will even out as it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but but there's like some points with AI. I said, well, one thing the AI cannot do is have like an idea that's not based on anything that's previously existed. And yeah, it's
Right.
to some degree, we can say the same thing about humans. We are all the product of everything we've ever experienced. Yeah, but
Right.
as I said, okay, in one of my series, I have a hero who has a pet bunny on a starship, because I decided why not. And and he is in one restaurant, he's drinking a whiskey made on the moon under a dome, and I wondered, can we do that? Yes, we can. The question is, why would we? But we can. And then I'm writing also alternative history about Czech Navy and fighting on the high seas, because after global flood we have sea finally. But and I cannot imagine AI having these, quite frankly, weird ideas. And another thing, like AI cannot be angry and AI cannot be horny, and like 85% of all human literature is about one of these two emotions.
That's a very good point, and I think you nailed it there. That's good. Yeah. I don't think that these AI tools can really handle human emotion as much as we can. I don't think an AI tool has ever had a relationship end or been hurt by somebody's words or any of those things, right? Those are deep human emotions that come through in our writing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And when I'm like, and I remember like when I'm, for example, like writing about the death of the character, and then describe it from the experience of other people, and we as humans, we all had death in our lives and death in the family,
Yeah.
so we just go to that emotion, and you remember, okay, this is how I felt at that time.
Right.
And so that's what we can do.
There you go. Well, maybe there'll be some new homework for your students.
Yeah.
We talk about AI and everything. Maybe I'm helping you create some extra work for your students. To your students, I apologize, because they're going to have some homework.
Yeah, well, I think they'll survive it or not. Yeah.
There you go. I like it. Oh, let's talk about your stuff, Jan, because you not only do you teach, but you also write yourself. Give us a little overview on some of the things you've been working on in the past, to kind of give our readers a taste of what you like to write about.
Okay. So I started with writing military sci-fi / space opera. So there is some conflict. There are like people saluting each other and stuff going bang in space, and I've never hated the fact that I am a big fan of works by David Weber, the author of the Honor Harrington series, and so my books are in the similar vein. And one of my two military SF series are in English, which is called the Central Imperium series. It's 4-book series so far. You can get it on Amazon and elsewhere, and it's like finished series. It's my love letter to the genre. It has empires rising and falling, and one guy who is a intelligence analyst for the Space Navy. He is like from a royal family, and the whole royal family is being targeted, him included, even though he's like ninth in the line of succession. And so there's all kinds of adventures with that. And I'm doing my military sci-fi stuff, but I'm also having a blast. And I love Star Wars, and I love the video games Mass Effect, and I love Louis McMaster-Bujold's Miles Vorkosigan series, and I think you can see elements in that story as well. And actually, my latest book that came out in English is from that universe. It's like a collection of stories with a framing story connecting them, and it's called Unholy Compromises. And it's been published a few months ago by Nazca Press. And this book is actually unique in English because this book has no equivalent on the Czech market, because it came from various short stories that were published in all kinds of anthologies and magazines, and for the English publishing, I combined them together with a framing story. So there are all these individual stories, and there's a reason why the characters are talking about them. So so because of that, I've described it as sort of Canterbury Tales in space, although one of the stories is a little bit of a Decameron in space. And I had a blast writing these stories, because it's one pleasure of writing sci-fi is it's not always the question why, and sometimes the question is why not. And that's why I have a main character with a bunny on a spaceship, because he has a pet bunny. And I guess the rules about pets aboard a warship are restricted in the future, or more relaxed in the future, I mean. So so he can do that. And what is so far only on the Czech market is my alternative history, which I mentioned already, the Czech Lands series, which is roughly World War II era naval combat with Czech kingdom on one side and the Tsarist Russia on the other side, with aircraft carriers and battleships. And so that's something for history buffs. And on the Czech market, it's my most successful series, which nobody expected, least of all me. And apparently it touched the right vein with people who love like military history, and they love building models, and they are sending me pictures with various historical World War II planes with Czech flags on the wing. And something I'm pretty successful with on the Czech market, and maybe we'll translate the first book into English sometime soon as well.
As we're talking, for those that are listening, behind you, Jan, there's a beautiful artwork from one of your books done by someone for your book. Can you talk a little bit about the artwork that you love to get for your books, and why is that so important, that your covers are so beautiful and make you feel like you're part of this world? Why is that so important for you?
Well, I'm not sure if it's important for me, but I like the covers. And
good.
Of course, there's the saying, don't judge book by its cover, but everybody's doing it anyway. And
exactly.
That's why we have cover designers, and that's why we have people who are experts in that. And, this cover that's behind me, I like it. It's from the second book of my Central Imperium series, called The Emperor in Exile. Which, as I think of it, the title itself is kind of spoiler, because I mentioned the main character is ninth in the line of succession, and he's just lowly intelligence analyst. And then the second book is called Emperor in Exile. Well, let's say he's no longer the ninth in the line of succession by book 2. And yeah. And so anyway, these covers for this series, they're done by a Polish cover artist, Tomasz Maroński. And they've been purchased by my previous Czech publisher, like en masse. And then when I went on the English market, when I had my books translated, I got the same covers from him as well. And my latest book also has a cover from him. I'm not sure if it will be seen, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so I love those covers. And my previous sci-fi series, which is called the Hirano series. I think there's one book that coming soon in English again from that series standalone that had like directly commissioned covers from Czech artist named Petr Willard, and my Czechland series had beautiful covers with battleships and aircraft carriers, and they're done by a Slovakian artist, Tomáš Flak. And so I have a Czech artist, Polish artist, and Slovakian artist. So I'm like in the Central Europe, I'm covered. And
You got it all.
I got it all. And as for how it's, I know aspiring authors are often asking how does the relationship between like publisher, author, and cover artist work. And I had all kinds of that. I think the one that's behind me, like I just got it. I happen to love it, but the artist had no input from me. He just drew it, and then my publisher bought it. As for the Czechland series, I was giving the artist very detailed instructions, like use this battleship, like for example Iowa class as an example and as a model, and do something with that, or have these planes look like roughly World War II Avengers or Dauntless.
Yeah.
And so he did a really good job with that. And so I had all kinds of experience, but mostly I don't think I've ever had a bad cover, like cover I didn't like. I was very fortunate with that. And I know, for example, many aspiring authors are afraid of publishers because they feel that the publisher would give them bad covers, but lots of indie authors may have pretty bad covers as well. So
yeah.
And I think of course, it's up to everyone to decide whether they want to go the indie route or the trad, what is called trad publishing route, and there are pros and cons in both. But when it comes to covers, you should just think about it. And yes, sometimes your publisher can give you a really bad cover. Sometimes the author can give himself or herself a really bad cover. So yeah, and I think book really needs to have a really nice looking cover.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're really, really, really nice. For your reader, Jan, let's talk to them. Who do you envision is going to love reading your books? Do you have somebody in mind when you're writing?
I think when I'm writing, I try not to think about my readers, because I try to enjoy the story as I'm telling it. Yeah. Sometimes later during the writing, I can think about the readers like from the second look. Like, for example, I'm now writing a new sci-fi series that's going to be the sequel to the Central Imperium, and I'm really thinking about how to balance, like, you want to give readers important information and not info dump them too much. And also I need to expect that, someone will read this sequel series without reading the first series. So I need to think about that, so I need to reintroduce some ideas and some, like, the technology works and elements like that. And also, for example, when in my alternative history series, I am now working on a novel from that world with my friend Lucia Lukačevičová, and one of our first readers had some really good advice. Like, in the first eight chapters, it's really good, but you need to put some more human moments in there, like something that more develops the characters. And we both thought about it and said, yeah, you're right. We need to do that. We need to add a scene or two here and there. And that's the moment where I'm thinking about readers. And as for the typical reader, I would say someone who likes the same things I do. So authors like David Weber, or I like Timothy Zahn, Louis McMaster Bujold, people who like, for example, games like Mass Effect are going to enjoy it. So I think
Yeah.
I think in a sense, we write books for ourselves, and no one is so unique that no one else is going to be interested in that. And I also like history. I love military history. I'm interested in World War II and World War One. So I think when I'm writing my alternative history novels, people can see that, and people who are like history buffs can see that as well.
So if your students come into class and they're carrying your book in their arms, do they get extra marks in your class
And
for buying
no,
your
they
book?
don't, and no, they don't. They. And I think in the class about science fiction fantasy literature, I asked them to make presentations about some authors. First, we do like some like well-established, famous historical authors who are long gone. But then I encourage them to like do some contemporary Czech and Slovak authors of science fiction, and I tell them, please don't do me. Don't. Just don't.
That would be very brave of them to do that,
Yeah,
for sure.
and I just a few days ago I watched some TV documentary about Agatha Christie, and it was like, I understand how people analyze life of the author, and oh, she may have been inspired by this and she may have been inspired by that, and well, then she went through divorce and it may have inspired her for blah blah blah. And I'm wondering, oh, I hope they never do documentaries like this about me. I really do hope they don't.
But at the same time, though, you're a teacher, you have influence, your students are looking to you, you are a published author, so you do inspire people. Like there's a very strong opportunity for people to be inspired by you and to be excited to have time with you and to read your book and be looking forward to the next one, right? I would think that would be something that would bring you joy.
Oh, definitely.
Just to know your audience loves what you do.
Oh, definitely, it brings me joy, and I love interacting with readers, and I do panels a lot, and everything. And I even when my students tell me they read my books and like them, it's good. And I remember one student told me that she recommended my books to her brother, and who didn't read much, and then he told her, "Wow, it's really great. I want the next one." And that's really nice,
Good.
And
Yeah.
and of course, then as writers, we spend 3 to 6 or more months writing it and then preparing it, and then someone reads it in 2 days and asks you, when is the next one coming? So
That's another part too, like being an author and being a teacher. You can tell people how to do something, or you can show them, or you can do both. And I feel like you're kind of a good example of both. I can tell you how to write a book, I can give you instruction, but I can also show you that I can do it myself.
Yeah.
And I think that just gives them a little bit more credibility. I think the students appreciate that.
I think it does. And I'm not saying it only as a teacher, but even as someone who likes to learn, and I love to read books about writing, even though I've published 21 novels. But I always like to learn something new, and I'm interested how other people are approaching certain issues, for example, when writing. But I always go with, I buy writing books by authors who have some credibility I trust, like someone who also is a successful author, and since I'm reading those books, successful how I define it. So yeah. And so because I see it on the indie market, like someone publishes one self-published novella, and then they publish the second thing they self-publish is a how to write book, and I'm like,
right,
and I have lots of books about writing I enjoy, and I, for example, really liked J. Michael Straczynski's Becoming Writer, Staying a Writer, and Straczynski is the guy who did Babylon 5, among other things.
Oh,
and he writes Marvel, and he wrote Spider-Man. He wrote the famous 9/11 issue of Spider-Man, when just after 9/11 that Marvel Comics felt they need to react, and because Spider-Man is New Yorker, they asked him to write the story with Spider-Man commenting on 9/11. And he has done also for like Hollywood movies. He done the first Thor movie. So I was really interested in his book about writing. And also I like, for example, Kevin J. Anderson books about writing productivity and writing professionalism. Kevin J. Anderson is a friend of mine, and he also published like 160 novels within 30-year career.
Wow.
So it's roughly 5 a year. And
Wow.
yeah. But I also like, and I don't remember the English title of it, but it's a book by Sid Field about writing screenplays. And Sid Field was a producer in Hollywood, and he didn't write so many screenplays himself, but through the position of his job, he read like hundreds of them, and he explains what he is looking at in a screenplay. And I'm not sure if there are any aspiring screenwriters listening to this, but about 85 or 90% of the book is applicable to writing novels as well. I think there's only one chapter that's describing the technical aspects of screenplay writing, like how if the name of the speaker should be in bold or something like that. So that's one about that, but the rest can be applicable everywhere.
We talked a little bit about translation. Talk a little bit about the process then, because a lot of my authors come on and they're speaking from English-speaking countries, and they don't really need to focus on this from what they're writing, but this is a big part of what you do. Talk about the translation process and the person that you're working with. You mentioned before, kind of your process and a little bit more about that.
Okay, I will. As my journey to being translated into English was a long one, and of course, as everyone, I wanted to be translated into English, but I remember I was at one convention, and there was a panel about some sci-fi books, and people were like mentioning various authors, and someone mentioned one other Czech science fiction series, and very good one, and someone in the audience said, "I think this series would deserve to be published in English." And everyone was nodding and agreeing very loudly, and I too, because I was agreeing as well, because the series was really good. And then I realized that for everyone in the room, it ends here. They agree that something should have been done, and that's that. And so I figured, okay, if I want to be translated into English, I should push it myself, because there's no point waiting for someone to publish, to be interested in you. And that's not like downplaying my skills or anything, but simple from a point of view of any potential, for example, American or British publishers, they have a long line of authors waiting for to be published by them, and they're already in English. And let's say, for the sake of the argument, that their works and my works are equivalent, they're like the same level of quality. So I said, I need to do the translation myself, and I went to I was also thinking about doing it myself, and I can write novel myself. I'm now writing novel for David Weber in his Honor Harrington series, so I've come full circle, and I've done that in English. But if I spend 6 months translating, it's 6 months I'm not writing, and I enjoy writing more than I enjoy translating, and writing right now is what pays the bills. And so I decided to hire a translator, and I went to there's a Facebook group for like people who are usually English native speakers, and they live in the Czech Republic, or they know Czech language, and they're looking for translation gigs. So I joined that group, and I made a post that said something like, "Hello, I'm a sci-fi writer from the Czech Republic. I need someone to translate my books from Czech to English, and I'm sure we will come to some mutually beneficial agreement as for all these like things." And within the next 2 hours, I had 5 offers. Actually surprised me, and it was the first time in my life I did job interviews. I conducted job interviews. So so I asked everyone to translate a sample, and from this process, my current translator Isabel Stainsby came out, and he's been with that was back in 2017 or 2018, and she's been with me ever since. And she's now translating, I think, my 6th novel. And one novel I was translated by another guy from that job interview session, and that was Brian Fonville. But he's no longer translating. Like he left the business from his last correspondence. So yeah, but Isabel is pro, and she studied Czech at Cambridge in the UK, and she lives in the UK in Glasgow, Scotland. And yeah, we've just clicked, and I really enjoy working with her. And so it's been a pleasure. And another thing we've done at that time is I created crowdfunding, and I had people crowdfund my translation, and it was rather successful. And I gave them rewards like, my background is a little bit in marketing, so I know that I shouldn't write like, "Oh, you helped me fulfill my dream." No one cares about your dreams. I need to do something for them. So my rewards were like, okay, for this much, I name a character after you. And for this little more, I name a character after you. And that character is not going to die. And people...
I was holding them hostage. Yeah.
People love that, They happily pay more for not dying, for being a novel and not dying. And
it's a great idea.
Yeah, and there was also a one reward that was like, I will name a character after someone you don't like, and that character is going to die.
Oh no!
And luckily no one sued us. But yeah,
that's amazing. That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we'll see. Maybe in the future I'll do another crowdfunding. That one was successful. Maybe we'll do it again. And so that's how we do about our translation. And so after I had the translation finished, I first published it myself through my own imprint in English, and now I have a publisher called Nazca Press, and some of the other books are published by Histria Books at this moment. So that's how my translation journey went. And I'm not sure how, for example, how American authors and Canadian authors are doing it about translating into other languages, non-English languages. I don't know how they approach it. And if we go,
it's interesting.
If we go back to AI, I know some translators or some people are thinking about just putting it through AI. And, I understand the feeling for it, and I understand that translation is expensive, but I have such a great relationship with my translator, and I just know that, no machine can do that, because sometimes especially in science fiction, because sometimes some things cannot be translated, so she needs to invent new words, for example.
Oh my gosh.
And things like that. Or, when it comes to idioms, do you translate idioms, or do you use the equivalent English idiom? And
right.
And we've discussed these things, and sometimes I don't know how machine would be able to understand that. And
right.
One example, we haven't had problem with this one, but one example, for example, is like in the English language, when you reward someone and you punish someone, you call it carrot and the stick method. You are using carrot and the stick.
Yeah.
In the Czech language, we don't say carrot and the stick. We say something that in literal translation means sugar and a whip. Which obviously is the same thing, but different. So
right.
And I think this should just be, you should replace one idiom with another idiom. You shouldn't translate it because it would seem weird.
Yeah. An English-speaking person would be like, a sugar and a whip.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, or I have recently I've been on a panel with some translators from English into Czech, and they complain that lots of the less experienced translators are translating directly the expression "someone walked over my grave." And you just cannot say that in the Czech language. It sounds weird, Well, it is weird, How is that feeling, But something similar we say in the Czech language, literally translated into English would mean it feels like I've been touched by death. Like this skeleton touched you, which is the similar feeling like someone walked over my grave.
That's interesting. Mm-hmm. See, I don't think a lot of people keep that in mind. So I'm glad that we got to talk about that too, Jan. That's great.
I have one last thought about that is that I listened to a podcast with one British author talking about how she used translation software to translate into German. And then she said, well, it's like easy. You just have to correct it because the translation software doesn't differentiate between do and sie. And for those listeners who know German, you know that there is a huge difference between do and sie. But translated into English, both means you. But in the meaning is different. Do is like more familiar, and sie is formal. And you say something to your friend, and you say something to your boss. And if the program doesn't differentiate between that across 400-page novel, you just need to go through it yourself manually and correct that.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to speak German, then how would you do that?
Yeah, you wouldn't even. Yeah, exactly. See, that's a very tricky thing for a lot of authors to consider. But yeah, no, I'm glad you found somebody that you trust and that you work well with, and that's a great relationship.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
It's amazing. So yeah, let's talk about where we're going to send people to connect with you, because I know there's people listening and they want to know more about you as an author. They want to follow your journey. Is there a good location to send a reader to connect with you?
Okay, so I'm pretty easy to find on social media. If you just type my name on Facebook or Instagram, you will find, well, on Instagram I have only one account. On Facebook I have my private account and my professional page. You can find both and you can join both. I speak in both Czech and English, and some of my American and Canadian friends are using automatic translation from my Czech posts, and sometimes they are not sure what I meant, but often works. But sometimes it creates misunderstandings, but otherwise it's good. I also have a website, which you can include in the description, but it's jan-kotouč.cz. And you can also find me on Amazon and elsewhere and I guess I'm on Goodreads, but I don't go there much. But some people probably are reviewing my books on Goodreads. So if you type my name, I'm pretty easy to find, and on social media, I'm pretty easy to contact.
So we do have listeners from your beautiful country who listen to this very show. So before we go, can you give us a farewell to the people from your country in your language? Because they're listening, and I think they would love to hear somebody that sounds like home for them. Can you do that before we leave?
Yeah, sure. Tak já zdravím všechny v České republice a i ty, co mluví česky v Americe a v Kanadě a jinde. A doufám, že jste si tenhle poslech taky užili a já se tu opravdu bavil a neříkám to jenom v angličtině, abych byl zdvořilý, opravdu jsem se tu bavil.
Excellent. And then for our English listeners, a goodbye from you. And thank you, Jan, for being part of this, Jan. I love having you here. Yeah. Any parting words for our English speaking audience?
I greatly enjoyed it. I hope we get to do this again. And I greet all the listeners as the same thing I said in Czech, or almost the same thing. And I really enjoyed. I had a great time here, and I hope to stay in touch. I hope if you like what I had to say, you will say hi to me. And I will see you around.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for making time for us. You can go to bed soon. You may get some sleep because it's getting late. But thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast. It's great to have you here.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Everyone, all the information for Jan in the show notes as well. Please go and check out his amazing book. So many for you to read. And share this with someone as well. Let them know about this. And because I know we're all looking for a great read. And you just found an amazing author who's super smart, super talented. And I'm so glad he has time for us. Jan, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.